Hello boys and girls, how you doing today? Good morning, good afternoon. Well, we have some huge announcement for today because the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society just dropped their annual meeting. It was a 3-hour discourse full of talks and crazy stuff that we're about to cover, so stick till the very end because I have some huge announcements for the end of this video. So this is very unscripted, but I'll try to be concise and brief for you, okay? So you can keep going on with your beautiful day today. So first of all, the meeting of course started with a prayer, praising the governing body, well, thanking Jehovah for the governing body and everything they do, the humanitarian aid and all the new projects they're embarking on, but no mention of Jesus, just the governing body and their helpers. And then the first talk is given by Jeffrey Winder, who we haven't seen in quite a while now. This nerd hasn't appeared in a broadcast in forever. And he gives a talk revealing a little bit on the doctrine on new light and how exactly does the governing body arrive at new light, new doctrines. How does that work? And then he compares the release of new light of the governing body to the first century apostles, when in Jerusalem, when they decided that the Gentiles could now be part of the church and they didn't have to follow the Mosaic law. Jeffrey Winder compares their decision making to that. Sure, Jeffrey, sure, there's a lot of overlap, I'm sure. But anyways, he reveals that when the governing body meets, a governing body member can bring up a question that they came up with during their personal study or whatever. So they meet every Wednesday, and every now and then a governing body member will, come up with the question like, what about this? And then the rest of the governing body members are tasked with doing research themselves and kind of like prayerfully considering the topic, the question that was brought up. That's how new light is brought up. Like someone comes up with it, the question, and then very slowly the other members kind of formulate a new doctrine around it, a new solution. And Jeffrey said that these topics can take months or even years to be considered. So sometimes they leave the topic for later discussion. I mean, this is nothing new, but it just shows you how human the process is, of coming up with new shit. It's just a bunch of nerds coming up with their own interpretation of the Bible. It's all very human. They claim it's inspired by Holy Spirit, but I mean, it's just so mundane. And I find it amazing that Winder would reveal this information. It would benefit them to keep things as mysterious and vague as possible. The governing body just got a new revelation from God, but it's a mystery how that works out. But now that Jeffrey has revealed exactly how it works, wow, it just completely destroys the magic of it. So I'm glad he talked about it. Wow, I hope it wakes someone up in the audience. And I find it amazing because in the same talk, Jeffrey says that since they're not inspired, they don't need to apologize for making mistakes, that they're gonna make mistakes in their interpretation sometimes. But later on the talk, he reads a Bible verse from the Old Testament, that one that says, Jehovah's not gonna do anything before revealing it to his servants, the prophets. And then Jeffrey said, Jehovah's still doing that today. And when he said that, my jaw dropped. I was like, wow. Like, did you just call yourselves a prophet indirectly? I mean, just the audacity of these people to be able to dismiss all criticism, be like, we make mistakes, we're not inspired, but still, we expect you to obey us as if we were prophets. Huge red flags with this talk, and that's just the beginning talk. Then we have a talk by David Splain, who drops some new light, kind of. He says that we shouldn't be dogmatic in questions of who is going to be resurrected. So David Splain goes on to say that in the past, Watchtower thought that the people destroyed in the global flood of Noah's day, in Sodom and Gomorrah, or in the Great Tribulation, those people would have no prospect of being resurrected because they were directly judged by Jehovah, right? That was the understanding we always had. I remember that. But then David goes on to reverse that and say that, no, we actually don't know who's going to be resurrected, so we can't be dogmatic about it. And he also says that some people, which could be considered mostly okay, like Solomon. You know, he says, well, maybe Solomon won't be resurrected. We simply don't know. Yeah, this is not some huge light or anything, but it just shows you how the governing body takes refuge in these words, I don't know, only when it's convenient to them. So it's happened a few times where they just backtrack. They used to be very dogmatic on certain things, like the type and anti-type teachings in the Bible, but they kind of backtrack to say, oh, well, actually, we don't know, we're not sure. So they just kind of muddy the waters. And as I talked in my previous video, keeping Jehovah's Witnesses in a sense of confusion is very useful for them, because they can manipulate people better that way, you know, keeping them in the dark, so to say, instead of having a clear doctrinal teaching. So yeah, that was Splain's talk. Then Jeffrey Jackson, the other Jeffrey, the weasel one, reviews the timeline of the Great Tribulation. But what's interesting is that he also muddies the waters even more. So, you know, recently the governing body has attempted to kind of fix certain events in the Great Tribulation to have a very concise timeline of how things are going to go down. But Jeffrey starts talking and saying that people that die during the Great Tribulation might be resurrected in paradise. Let's say the final judgment comes and people are killed for whatever reason. Well, they still might be resurrected. So he doesn't make it exactly clear. Like I said, they're just throwing things out there, very mysterious. But this is fascinating because it implies that someone that is killed by Jehovah right before Armageddon can still kind of make it into paradise. The previous understanding was that no, like if you're dead in Armageddon, that's it, you know. But now they kind of opened the door to the possibility of someone resurrecting after dying in the Great Tribulation. You would imagine that things would be more clear by now, you know, that's the point of new light. But no, they just muddied the waters. And Jeffrey acknowledges that, hey, people in Noah's day, maybe a lot of people did not hear Noah's message and they died, they were killed by Jehovah, but they're still going to be resurrected. And the same thing can happen today. Like, Jehovah's Witnesses are not in every land, you know, that's what Jeffrey said. And there's people living 10 miles from Bethel who don't even know who Jehovah's Witnesses are. So it's a possibility that Jehovah will resurrect them too. And that was a big theme in the annual meeting, leaving things in Jehovah's hands. So they repeated it so many times. Jehovah is a righteous judge. Don't worry too much about who's going to be resurrected, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's just fascinating. I'm amazed. Why would they do that? I'm not sure. Maybe they want to emphasize Jehovah's aspect of mercy more because of all the lawsuits coming against them. You know, they want to emphasize, oh, you gotta leave the judging in Jehovah's hands. That's the only angle I could take it from, but I may be wrong. But yeah, they're departing from a dogmatic set timeline to a more muddy, who knows what's gonna happen timeline. And wow, it's incredible to see. Next, we're shown a new Caleb and Sophia cartoon about being an outcast in school. Apparently that's a good thing because Jesus healed a leper at one point. So it's okay to not celebrate Christmas at school. And it's a very sad cartoon because it shows Caleb and Sophia being complete loners. Caleb is playing with his ball completely alone. Sophia is also completely alone. She's an outcast. And she kind of persuades, both her and her brother persuaded this new girl, Sophie, in not attending the holiday class, the holiday little event they're having. And she agrees to just go chill in the library with them, with Caleb and Sophia. And that's how it ends. And this girl is just barely studying, but she's already being dragged into being an outcast. Incredibly depressing cartoon. We're gonna cover it once it comes out in jw.org. Then Stephen Led, your favorite, gives an update on the movie studios they're building in Warwick and Australia. They also released a mini trailer for the Jesus movie, and I mean it looks good, production quality wise it looks good. But yeah, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints also releases good-looking Jesus movies, and that doesn't mean they have the truth. So, yeah, I'm sure those Jesus films are gonna be filled with Watchtower doctrines, and yeah, they're gonna find a way to screw it up. Even with all the great production quality they're doing, they're filming in Israel for some scenes apparently. Doesn't matter, they're just gonna screw it up somehow. And then Stephen Lett puts up the question like, oh, why are we focusing so much on making movies if the end is coming real soon? And then he kind of takes a Tony Morris approach. He says like, oh, well, we might still be producing these movies into the new world. Which is complete nonsense, because Armageddon would wipe out all the infrastructure necessary to produce movies. How are we going to be making professional movies with sticks and stones? Beats me. But that's in Stephen Lett's head. That's his headcanon. We're going to keep making Jesus movies into the real world, and increasing the production of stuff, of media and building projects, does not in any way contradict his claims that we're living in the final days. And then he repeats once again that we don't know when Jehovah's Day is coming. That's what Stephen Lett said. I mean, this is the same clown that said that we're living in the final part of the last days, undoubtedly the final part of the last days, shortly before the last day of the last days. Yeah, this is the same clown. So, fuck you, Stephen Lett. Go fuck yourself. And then Gak Flegel comes in, which I think he's just gonna be the new Stephen Lett once he hits the bucket. He reminds us that Jehovah loves us with his whole soul and his whole mind. A thing which the Bible never says. And yeah, he just has an innocent talk about Jehovah's love. And then they bring up Garrett Loesch, that old fossil, out of his tomb where they were hiding him. And he talks about Israelite tithing and some boring old Israelite protocol and how that reflects God's love. And it's kind of just like a prelude of Samuel Hurt's talk. And then Samuel Hurt shares some interviews of some old people, really old people, like 100 years old, who pioneered way back when you had to do like 100 hours a month. And I'm just looking at them and thinking, wow, what must they think of all the changes that have been made? They had to bust their ass to do their hours. And now pioneers only have to do 50 hours a month? What are these old men thinking? Like, damn, they have seen this religion fall in their lifetime. I would really like to have a conversation with them. And then it's amazing how this lady has Rutherford's books in the background as props, those crazy books talking about the end of the world. But I mean, the common Jehovah's Witness is not even allowed access to those books. So, well, they're just so obtuse. But here comes the big announcement, guys. I'm sorry I took forever. I wanted to cover everything for you. The big announcement that Samuel Hurt just released is that starting in November 2023, publishers will not be required to record their ministry hours.
The governing body believes this same principle can be applied when it comes to reporting our time spent in the ministry. Our ministry involves much more than counting time. For this reason, we are pleased to announce that beginning November the 1st, 2023, congregation publishers will no longer be asked to report the amount of time they spend in the ministry, nor will publishers be asked to report their placements, the videos they show, or their return visits. Instead, the field service report will simply have a box that will allow each publisher to indicate that he or she shared in any form of the ministry during the month. There will be one more box where publishers report the number of different Bible studies they conduct.
So you know how in your monthly ministry report you have to report the number of hours, the number of return visits, the number of videos you showed, of magazines placed, the number of Bible studies. Well, forget about all that. Starting November 2023, there's no more reporting hours. All you're gonna be reporting is if you're active in the ministry and how many Bible studies you conducted. That's it. Pioneers and special missionaries will still be required to meet their hours, which by now they have been greatly reduced. But your normal everyday publisher, will only have to say, yeah, I was active in the ministry, and if I have any Bible studies. And I mean, guys, this is huge because Jehovah's Witnesses have been counting their hours each month since 1920s. More than 100-year tradition flushed down the toilet out of a whim. And we all know the real reason behind this. The governing body tried to spin it like, oh, well, we're not doing this anymore because we want to focus on the reasons we perform the ministry. You know, because we love Jehovah and we love people. So we don't want to focus that much on counting time anymore. We all know the real reason. Their numbers are dropping. And I kind of expected them to drop the hour requirement, but not this early. Definitely not this early. So things are bad at headquarters. They know, they're aware that the numbers are awful and that we've seen them in the past 3 years. The Bible studies have more than halved. The ministry hours have also halved. And yeah, things are not looking good for the movement. It's collapsing. No other way to put it. I don't want to be a fearmonger, but in terms of activity in the ministry, I can rightfully say, yeah, it imploded on itself, and it's not gonna recover anytime soon. And the governing body knows it, and that's why they're instituting these changes. So, although they didn't mention it, I'm guessing this is the last annual report they're gonna be releasing, the 2023 one, if they even release it at all. They might just make up the excuse like, since we're not gonna be counting any more time, there's no point in releasing the hours. But if they do release it, oh my god, I'm sure that they're gonna be terrible. I mean, this is huge because we've known for a long time growing up in this religion that there's this culture in the Kingdom Hall where if you don't do at least 10 hours a month as a regular publisher, you won't be considered as elder material or as ministerial servant material. Elders will look down on you if you don't do 10 hours a month in your ministry, at least. But now that is gone. What's gonna happen to the elder arrangement? What's gonna happen to the ministerial servant arrangement? It's fascinating to think about. So it's gonna take some time to see what happens with that. And I think this is just gonna backfire on the governing body. It really is, because asking Jehovah's Witnesses to count their time was a huge incentive for them to go out in the ministry. I'm aware that a lot of publishers probably inflated their numbers, and lied, which, yeah, I don't blame them for, because door-to-door sucks ass. But now they have that door open for them, fully PMEs, that they can slack off in their ministry and retain a good conscience, because they can at least say, oh yeah, I was active in the ministry. Even if that's just 1 hour a month, they can do it, just put that little check mark and they're good to go. They're good to go. And we know by now that if you give Jehovah's Witnesses a room for slacking, they will take it. They will take it. They have proven that with Zoom meetings, and we have seen that with the collapse in ministry hours. Jehovah's Witnesses at the end of the day are normal people. If you give people leeway to be lazy, they will take it. So we can't blame them for that. But wow, what a shit show. This religion has fallen to that point where they're trying to hide the numbers by not requiring them anymore. Holy cow. I'm excited to see what happens after this. I may be wrong. Maybe this will increase the zeal of the publishers, but nah, I actually really doubt that. And the last thing they announced was the release of this tract. So we have Porky Pig impersonator Mark Sanderson showing this new tract, 32 pages, gonna be traduced in 446 languages, 446. And this is a short manual that's going to be studied on the 1st of January, so I guess that's going to be the next book study. It talks about how to imitate the qualities of Jesus and his apostles in engaging with people in the ministry. So you have your lesson, you have a short video on things like being tactful, showing interest, being persistent, just good qualities you can have in the ministry. So yeah, that's going to be released, I think, next month. And he asked us to keep it confidential, but Mark Sanderson, I just couldn't help myself. I had to share these good news with the entire world. And the announcement for the hour requirement is also on jw.org now. So I guess they just wanted to post that right away instead of letting the apostates tell everyone beforehand. So damn, governing body, you beat me to it. So yeah, at the end we have Mark Sanderson and Kenneth Cook assuring us that this destruction of the hour requirement, it doesn't mean we're slacking off or that we're slowing down. Oh no, nothing could be further from the truth. They said they're appointing an army of regular pioneers, and then Mark Sanderson says that the Philippines is experiencing a huge increase in publishers because apparently the Philippines represents the entire world. This nation in Asia who's majority Catholic and whose people are stricken by poverty. I mean, no offense to the Philippines, guys. I love you guys, but like this is the case in Latin America and Africa, the Philippines is just the perfect place for cults to proliferate. So no surprise there's an increase in the Philippines. Hey Mark Sanderson, if you want to impress me, tell me there's been an increase in the United States or even in Latin America at this point, and I'll give it to you. But the Philippines, come on. They try to salvage what they have, painting it like, oh, you know, it doesn't mean we're slowing down. It doesn't mean our seal should diminish. But hey, my prediction is that this is gonna be a disaster. And even worse, this is gonna create a more toxic environment in the congregations, because now, even before, pioneers would kind of look down on regular publishers. Well, imagine now, regular publishers that do 10 hours won't be able to look down at the ones that do 1 hour, because they're all gonna be the same. They're just gonna check a little check mark in the report. But now everyone who's a normal publisher will be kind of looked down on with suspicion, you know. Pioneers will think to themselves, hey, these guys are probably slacking off because we don't even know how many hours they're doing. And now you can be an elder or a ministerial servant without doing 10 hours. Maybe you can just do 1 hour a month in the ministry, and damn, that would be good. You can be an elder. What a disaster. It's like a corporation when they're forced to downsize, you know? It's just sad to see. And then Kenneth Cook reminds us that these adjustments are based on the Bible, which, I mean, yeah, sort of. If you mean that the Bible doesn't have our requirements, then yeah, you're definitely going on the right direction. Although you're still asking for hours for your pioneers, but hey, a step in the right direction. And it's definitely good news for publishers who are just spent and burned out. Now they can relax a little bit, and maybe in that free time that they have, they can start thinking about where their life is going. So I really hope that these changes give more freedom to the normal Jehovah's Witness, and that this religion just keeps imploding. And then this buffoon keeps talking about the Great Tribulation. It's just around the corner. We're almost there, guys. Sure, whatever you say, Kenneth Cook. Thank you, governing body. I love you. Thank you for making these changes, and I'm so excited to see what effect they have on the greater population of Jehovah's Witnesses. Bah. So guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think these changes are gonna have a positive or a negative effect on the Jehovah's Witnesses? I would love to hear your thoughts, so let me know. And thank you for listening to me. I hope this was not a lot of words, but just wanted to make something right out of the bat so you are informed. A huge thank you to my Patreon community as always, and to all those who have become channel members. I'll be releasing a new video in 2 days, so subscribe so you don't miss it. Have a wonderful day, guys. Take care and stay away from the tower.